One of the questions I want to ask is to put this question of the politicization of yoga and your experiences in teaching in India with the current agenda of the regime in India, which is the Modi regime and the BJP and the current political party. Can you explain for our audience who is not particularly familiar with the current politics of India, what the BJP is as a political party, who Modi is, and why exactly are people, particularly some on the left or just even liberals, particularly concerned with his administration? And we're going to tie that also in terms of his promotion of yoga. Can you put that particularly in context for our audience?
Yeah, so Modi kind of rose to prominence in Gujarat, which is in Western India. And he was very big in the movement to create this thing called the Ram Temple, or the Ayodhya Temple. So this is a temple that is thought to be the birthplace of Ram, who's a mythical, maybe semi-mythical, semi-historical character from one of the epics. The problem is that they want to build this temple on a mosque. And he was seminal in rising people up to help destroy this mosque. And then he was the chief minister of Gujarat. And during his time there were quite a few incidents of deadly violence against Muslims. So a lot of the Muslim community calls him the Butcher of Gujarat. So he got his start really in an anti-Islamic fashion and group. And he's been part of this movement for a very long time. So this group has now risen to power. And the BJP is really connected to a group called the RSS, which is a sort of military arm of the BJP. And they're very much modeled on Nazis. And they don't deny that. It's part of the literature is that, these Nazis were doing great things, organizing groups. So they have children's groups and all the kinds of things that Nazi Germany was doing to provide propaganda. And Modi's been part of this for a very long time. And a lot of the people that he's working with and who he's promoting are also calling for violence, sometimes outright, sometimes through dog whistles, against non-Hindu communities.
Would you consider that Modi is a Hindu version of the reactionary nationalist turn we've seen in global leaders from Front National in France to Viktor Orban in Hungary to Boris Johnson in England? In other words, is he just an Indian
in Poland?
In Poland, yeah. Is he an Indian manifestation of this kind of new right-wing politics, but with the cultural accoutrement of Hinduism and religious accoutrement of Hinduism and a cultural accoutrement of India in it? Would you say that's a fair description of Modi?
Oh, yeah, I think he exemplifies that. He's very much a cult of personality. When you're driving through the streets in India, you'll just see these huge billboards just of Modi. They don't have any words or anything on it. It's just Modi staring at you. And yeah, so he's very much got a cult of personality and is more, I think, like Donald Trump really than even some of his other people with the ecstaticism that his followers have for him.
Would you say, I mean, you highlighted the connections with fascism, and I kind of have a two-part question. Would you say that, the term fascism is very, complex, and, there's a lot of debate about it, but it seems to me, and this is just my personal opinion, the closest thing that we have in the modern world to fascism, not only in rhetoric, but also in the kind of political violence that is being unleashed in the country, is from Modi, right? So would you call Modi a fascist? That would be my first question. And my second question is, why is yoga becoming an issue for the BJP? Is this part of that kind of fascist propaganda? What do they, what is the relationship between yoga and this kind of right-wing, reactionary nationalist, or even fascistic political movement?
On the question of whether Modi's a fascist or not, rather than really state whether I think he is or not, I would have you look at what happens to anyone who does call him a fascist. So if someone calls him a fascist on Twitter, they generally get death threats. I know a woman whose like 5-year-old child has gotten rape threats. It can be a really scary and dangerous thing to describe him that way. And so I would actually rather not define him in those terms, because they're so malleable that I don't want to be misunderstood. But I think he has fascist tendencies? Absolutely. Do I think his group is tied to a fascist movement? Like there is a fascist element to Modi and Hindutva, definitely. But I think to just call it fascism is problematic, because it is an Indian thing. And again, this is putting this foreign word onto this leader that, it's important to notice how this developed internally, as well as with the colonial and outside influence.